Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is the first diamond paint with me while I start Maleficent from Treasure Studios Art, and the artwork is by Lizzie Falcon. I have loved this piece since it came out, since I saw it on her site, and one of my subscribers, Vicky, completed it and has it framed, and it looks so amazing. I love this one so much. So one thing that I have done different, remember I used to put the diamond painting adhesive on the light pad and then just stick the diamond painting to it to hold it. Before I did that, I used to use clips. Well, I got tired of using the clips. So over the weekend, I was trying to figure out what can I do, because the adhesive seemed to like really cook onto the light pad this time, and I had a hard time getting it off. And I said, I don't want to do that again. So what I decided to do, and I don't know how this is really going to work, I bought those little adhesive Velcro dots, and I put Velcro along the outside of my light pad, and then put the dots along the outside of the diamond painting, so then I can just stick it by Velcro on the outside. I'll have to let you know how that works, because when I have to move the diamond painting like to the left or right is where I'm thinking I may have an issue. I may have to get or bring my really large light pad upstairs and use that, because the one I have on there is not the biggest one that I have. So I may have to do that, but I do have a bunch of the Velcro dots, and I figured that would be like the easiest way to not use adhesive. But yeah, so a lot of black in this one. Yeah. But I love the process of just being able to put the bags out on my laptop table and not having to open up a billion tiny little bags. And yeah. So had the arbitration yesterday, and just when I think that, oh, maybe I'm charging too much, my boss too much for my like administrative fee, something comes up that, nope, I am fucking warranted in charging everything that I charge for this, because I am putting out little fires all day long. And, at the end of the day, so the job technically ends at 6:30 my time, but I'm usually working until 7 or 7:15 getting everything done. At the end of the day, somebody wasn't done editing, and I'm like, I'll take 2 or 3 pages. I just want to fucking get it done at the end of the day, right? Today we have a regular job that starts at 11. And then we are off Thursday and Friday. I'm pretty sure my boss is not taking anything, which works out for me because I was already off on Friday because of my podiatrist appointment and then my hair appointment Friday night. But yesterday I had a bit of a panic situation where my boss had sent me a message, and she was like, I'm thinking about taking off 5 weeks in January. What? Because she is making so much money during this arbitration, she is going to have the money to do that. And I was like, what? I thought after the arbitration, she might take a week or two. I could go a week or two with no paycheck. And even though I am making more money during this arbitration, it is just getting us ahead. Do you know what I mean? I would hate to have to use that money to then make up for if she takes off a bunch of time at the beginning of the year. So I didn't say anything to the team, and I decided to send her an email giving her my thoughts. And I sent her the email during the lunch break, and she called me, and we talked for a good half hour about it. What she wants to do is she actually wants to not go back to school per se, but like take an online course for coding. She's like, I want to learn something else. And I said, just my 2 cents, I think taking off 5 weeks would be a hardship to the team. And I explained about, this money from the arbitration is going to come in handy for Christmas, is going to put people ahead, meaning 5 weeks with no work. I mean, that's a lot. And so, of course, when I give Bill a heads up, he's upset. because he's upset when I don't have work. Like a week, okay, like fine, everyone's entitled to vacation, all of that, but 5 weeks. So he was upset all day. And then when he comes home, we were talking and I said, I just didn't want you to be mad at me, you know? And he's like, I'm not mad at you. He said, but my God. So when my boss and I were talking, I said, you know, I really hope that if you ever decided to leave this profession, that you would give me a serious heads up, because I would have to find another job. Because I really don't see myself working for another reporter besides her, only because people don't want to pay, other reporters don't want to pay what she pays. And I mean, I've been working with her over 5 years now and doing this job over 20 years. I can't imagine just trying to vet and get used to working with someone else again. So I would be literally finding a job outside of this house. I swear to God, I would. Because YouTube, I could not sustain, not nearly, there's no way. YouTube helps pay my income taxes at the end of the year. That's what that's for. So I decided I'm cutting out all extraneous spending. You know, she hasn't made the decision, and I really think she's not going to take the 5 weeks off now that I talked to her, sent her the email, because the course that she was going to take was guided. She can take a self-paced course, so she can do it at her own leisure. And she's like, well, I thought you would enjoy the time off. 5 weeks? No. And then she was like, well, maybe I can pay everybody a bonus at the end of the arbitration. And then that could be used for the time off. Okay, well, maybe, but you really need to stop and think about that. Because I remember when I was going through cancer treatment and she took a sabbatical with her husband to New Zealand and she was off for a month. Now, she gave us like 6 months notice, so everyone was well aware of it. And she actually paid me like a retainer for that month. And I was going through cancer chemo and all that anyway, so the time off was nice because that was probably it was only my second month of treatment, so it wasn't a bad thing. But it was hard getting back to work after being off for a month. Yeah. So last night, I worked till 7:15. My stepdaughter and her boyfriend were here for dinner. And Bill and I watched TV for a little bit. And yeah, I don't get to spend much time with him when I have this arbitration because I'm working till 7 or 7:15. And so got him to bed, and then I sat down and I stitched. I stayed up way too late. I stitched till like 11 o'clock. I got a good little chunk done on my Carolyn Manning Designs piece though. But yeah. So today, like I said, my job starts at 11 and off tomorrow and Friday. So I'm looking forward to that. And I have a massage on Saturday. And yeah, I'm just hoping my foot doctor appointment goes good on Friday. I really hate going to see a new doctor and all of that. But I think my issues are pretty straightforward, and it's probably something that he's seen a billion times. And Bill, this is Bill's podiatrist, so he really likes him. So yeah. Oh, I think I'm going to, when I go Friday for my hair appointment, I'm going to get more layers put in my hair. I'm going to get my hair cut probably an inch shorter. I have a picture I'm going to show her. Yeah. But yeah. Okay, so today's story is called Massacre on the Mary Russell. So in 1828, the Mary Russell brig floated into Cork Harbor with 7 of its crew dead. They had been brutally murdered by their captain, and the survivors had a disturbing story to tell. Okay. So on the bright morning of June 26, 1828, on what seemed like a perfectly normal day in Cork, Ireland, 2 ships came into harbor. The schooner Mary Stubbs and the brig Mary Russell approached the harbor, and both had a story to tell. Some of the people on the dock that morning knew at least part of the story, but many were about to discover the horrors that had befallen the Mary Russell. The Mary Stubbs wasn't simply arriving at the harbor as part of its schedule. It was bringing the Mary Russell in, steered by some of their crew. As the ships came into view, one of the spectators pointed and shouted. Someone had just jumped into the ocean from the Mary Stubbs, and they were calling out for him to get rescued. They watched the man swim to nearby ships before being rescued by one of the smaller ones. The man they had rescued was Captain William Stewart, who was in fear of his life. Unsure if he had been saved or not, Captain Stewart jumped off the rescue boat and back into the water. He was saved yet again by a different boat headed to West Cork. When the Mary Stubbs and the Mary Russell managed to dock in the late evening and Captain Stewart was brought ashore, the story of what happened began to unfold. It appeared that 2 days earlier, on board the Mary Russell, Captain Stewart had murdered 7 of his crew. This should be quite an interesting story. First mate William Smith, crew member John Howes, cabin boy Daniel Scully, and an 11-year-old passenger named Thomas Hammond were the only survivors and told their story at the trial of Captain Stewart. Stewart was considered a good master and kind captain and had been with the Mary Russell for some time. The ship had left Cork earlier in the year, transporting a cargo of mules to the West Indies in the Caribbean. It picked up a cargo of hides and sugar from Barbados and departed on May 9th carrying a crew of 6 men. Whenever I hear about like ships and crews and stuff, I think of The Count of Monte Cristo. Have you guys seen that movie? Such a good movie. Anyway, after a week at sea, Stewart wasn't faring well and had been having strange dreams of his men killing him. He began to withdraw from the crew, looking ill and tired, brought on by a lack of sleep. He spoke of his dream to First Mate Smith, who attempted to convince him that dreams did not always come true. Such was the belief of the time. One of the crew was James Rains, an Irishman who had been fired as first mate on another ship due to his alcoholism. Stewart had allowed him to crew for the Mary Russell, somewhat against his better judgment. Another night came, and another dream, this time that God himself was warning Stewart that it would be Rains who would lead the mutiny and kill him while he slept. This, combined with his concerns over Rains' character, led him to believe that Rains was going to turn pirate and commandeer his vessel for himself. Rains spoke in an Irish dialect that Stewart found hard to understand, and it was with this dialect that Rains conversed and joked with the other crew members, angering the captain further. Stewart claimed to have overheard the crew asking Rains to teach them how to navigate and use the stars to help, something only a captain would have known. As the weeks passed, Stewart's paranoia grew to such a level that he ordered Smith and his trusted crew member John Howes to sleep with him in his cabin for protection, beside numerous weapons. He accused Rains of conspiring to mutiny, which was denied vehemently, but Stewart believed in his own mind that mutiny was imminent. He threw navigation equipment and the captain's log overboard along with personal belongings. What? Okay. 6 days from Cork Harbor, Stewart took matters into his own hands. First Mate Smith was out on the deck fixing a faulty lamp when Stewart spotted him and believed it to be something untoward. The following morning, he accused him of joining the mutineers and ordered he be tied up against the mast to be lashed for his sins. The crew voiced their concerns over the legality of the lashing, but Smith told them to agree to the captain's demands. You know, I don't know the law when you're on a ship like that, but I'm thinking the captain has the say. Am I wrong about that? Instead, they tied him up and confined him to a small cellar under the cabin. Seeing what the men had done, he boarded a passing ship to buy meat, but returned with a pair of pistols. Each man was summoned to the captain's quarters and accused of mutiny. They were tied up as Smith had been, under the threat of being shot in the head if they refused. His trusted crew member John Howes refused to follow Stewart's orders and became involved in a fight with him. Bloodied and disoriented, Howes succumbed to Stewart's strength and he was tied up with the rest of the crew. Stewart then made cabin boy Scully sign a statement that the crew planned a mutiny. The crew were forced onto the deck overnight, where they suffered from the cold and discomfort of the Atlantic waves and weather. This also reminds me of the movie with, damn it, what's his name? I know it was Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman. Crimson Tide, is that the right name? Where there's like mutiny on a submarine. Oh my God, another good movie. Yeah. So later on, with the boys' help, they dragged the crew into the cabin, realizing their bonds were not good enough to hold them. At that point, Howes broke free, but with the help of the cabin boys, Stewart hit him with an axe and shot him 3 times. Jesus, okay. The cabin boy and passenger were promised great riches, which is how Stewart managed to convince them to help tie his men. Howes stumbled into the hold, bleeding from 3 bullet holes. He took refuge behind some crates and would miraculously go on to survive. Stewart didn't search for him, but at the back of his mind, he thought Howes may still be alive and could murder him at any moment. He fixed metal bolts to the cabin floor and tied a rope through each bolt and around the men's necks. It was tied in such a way that when each man moved their head, it would pull on their throats. With his men tied up below deck, Stewart tried to recall his dreams. He believed that if the crew were innocent of mutinous ideas, then God would have sent another ship to rescue them. Believing death to be the only punishment befitting mutiny, he realized what needed to be done. Good God. The Mary Russell dropped its flag to a reversed ensign at half-mast, which was the recognized international distress signal. The previous day, Stewart believed he had seen a ship come close on 2 occasions, but then veer away at the last moment. He believed this to be a sign and the final nail in the coffin for his crew. On June 22nd, Stewart stormed into the cabin area with a crowbar and screamed at the top of his voice, "The curse of God is on you all. There's the ship come to us twice and went away. You ruffians, you are going to take my life, but I'll take yours." Stewart beat the second mate over the head repeatedly until his skull had been crushed. Those poor men. Helpless, tied up, right? Seeing this as the only way to kill mutinous crew members, he moved between each of the men, beating, cutting, and smashing them to death. My good God. After Stewart had brutally murdered 7 of his crew, he turned to the boys and showed them his steady hand and said, "Look, boys, at my hand, how steady it is. I think no more of killing them than if they were dogs." Stewart then stood outside of the cellar where First Mate Smith was restrained, put a harpoon to the air hole that had been cut for him, and fired the weapon. The harpoon hit Smith in the eye, shoulder, ear, and face, but he went on to survive. Stewart thought him to be dead as the point of the harpoon had hit the hides in storage, which had sounded like human flesh. Wow. Later, when the Mary Russell had come ashore, a witness to the scene on the ship had the following to say. "There were 7 human beings with their skulls so battered that scarcely a vestige of them was left for recognition, with a frightful mess of coagulated blood all strewed about the cabin. Nearly 100 weight of cords binding down their bodies to strong iron bolts, which had been driven into the floor for that murderous purpose. Some of the bodies were bound round around about 6 places, and with several coils of rope around their necks, and all were in a state of decomposition, so that it required a constitution of no ordinary strength to bear up against the spectacle and the effluvia that arose from a confined cabin." So the smell was putrid, pungent. Captain Robert Callender of the American schooner Mary Stubbs was on the way back from Barbados to Belfast, carrying various cargoes, when he noticed the Mary Russell flying the distress signal. They were 300 miles from the Cove of Cork when they approached the ship. Callender was an American from New Brunswick and no stranger to the Atlantic trade routes. He ordered the Mary Stubbs to approach the Russell with caution due to pirates that had recently been seen in the area. After calling out for some time, Captain Stewart finally appeared from the cabin covered in blood. Stewart immediately told Callender that he had executed 9 men for mutiny, believing Smith and Howes to be dead, and bragged about it to Callender. Really, he bragged? He led Callender to the cabin where the 7 crew members had been slaughtered and claimed that he was truly a valiant man to have killed so many so easily. Suddenly, Smith and Howes climbed out of the hold and begged for Callender's help. Well, that must have been quite the sight. Captain Callender took the 2 men to his own ship and then ordered 3 of his own crew to get on board the Russell and follow the Stubbs into Cork. Immediately believing the 3 new crew members to be enemies and assassins, Stewart jumped overboard and began swimming away. But Callender had him fished out of the water and placed in the hold of the Mary Stubbs. Like, sit your fucking ass down, right? Stewart was put on trial on August 11th, 1828, and pleaded not guilty on the grounds that he was insane and incapable of knowing right from wrong. Yeah, he had to be. Press at the time reported Stewart as being in a state of mental derangement. When Dr. Thomas Carey Osborne of the Cork Asylum took the stand to explain the insanity, he diagnosed Captain Stewart with monomania. It was a 19th century psychiatric term that meant a form of partial insanity conceived as a single pathological preoccupation in an otherwise sound mind, meaning that someone would run with an insane notion while being quite sane at the same time, and we would now refer to this as psychosis. So Captain Stewart was found not guilty of murder due to being under mental derangement. He was committed to the Cork Asylum for criminal lunatics. A number of years later, Stewart had another psychotic episode and murdered a hospital attendant with a weapon made from animal bones. What? He was never released, obviously, spent time in various asylums, and died of natural causes in 1873. So that people would never forget the victims of the Mary Russell, a family member pulled funds together and had a gravestone inscribed, which still stands at Muir Cemetery, and it reads, "You gentle reader that pass this way, attend a while, adhere to what I say. By murder vile, I was bereft of life and parted from two lovely babes and wife. By Captain Stewart, I met an early doom on board the Mary Russell the 22nd of June. Forced from this world to meet my God on high, with whom I hope to reign eternally nigh." So, wow. Wow, wow, wow. And you know, I am sure that other things like that have occurred. Do you know what I mean? Like with ships and pirates and things like that. I guarantee you there's been a bunch of things that have happened like that. Okay. That was quite the story. So today's reading from the Daily Stoic is called "Take This Motto to Heart." Of people who rise to positions of power, there are two types: those who think they can do it alone and those who know that that is insane. You know, and that reminds me of the saying that it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. We can do many things on our own, I feel, but we always need help. There's always, and if you are a God believer, people say that you can't do anything without God, right? So this is as true today as it was when the ancient historian Cassius Dio was writing his Roman history in the early 200s. In it, Dio examines what differentiated Marcus Aurelius from Commodus. Given Commodus's deranged reign, it might seem like he was destined to fall from the beginning, but Dio first points out something fascinating about Commodus. He was not naturally wicked, but on the contrary, as guileless as any man that ever lived. When his father died, Marcus left him many guardians, among whom were numbered the best men of the Senate, but their suggestions and counsels Commodus rejected. And you know, meaning too, that if you think you know everything, you'll never be able to learn anything. You know what I mean? So Seneca's instructions were to hear and take to heart this useful and wholesome motto: cherish some man of high character and keep him ever before your eyes, living as if he were watching you and ordering all your actions as if he beheld them. Though Marcus Aurelius never mentions Seneca in his meditations, it is clear that he heard and took this motto to heart. The first 17 entries in Marcus's book Meditations, 10% of the entire book, are spent reflecting on the men of high character he kept before his eyes over his lifetime. From his deathbed, he was arranging for the best and brightest to advise his son. And the question for you is, are you living by the motto? Are your actions guided by someone of high character? Do you show no hesitation in resorting to a teacher, or do you think you can do it all alone? That's like men who don't want to stop and ask for directions. Asking for help is not considered, in my opinion, a sign of weakness. And I think for a lot of people, that's what they think, that it's considered a sign of weakness. I actually think it's considered a sign of great strength asking for help. So remember, we all need one another. You can't do it by yourself. Okay. As always, I hope you have a great Wednesday. And as always, I have to say as always, so I have my ending spiel in my head. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.